Andy Rock here with another stream, 9:27 a.m. Central Standard Time. You're watching us live on Tuesday, February 28th, almost into March, you guys. Crypto market cap hasn't moved a whole lot in the past 24 hours. You can see Bitcoin is retracing a little bit. Bitcoin sitting at 23.5, ETH at 16.39, BNB at 304, Cardano 36 cents. Dogecoin 8.2 cents, Matic $1.24. Things have come down just a little bit here in the past 24 hours since opening about an hour ago. Stock market has fallen about 150 points. Again, I think what we saw yesterday was a little bit of a bounce, but I think inevitably we are going lower, going to retest 32.5, 32.6 at some point here, maybe later today or tomorrow. And then if that doesn't hold, we need to be paying attention to potentially a drop to maybe like 32.3, 32.1. Again, just be prepared for anything. Don't go all in. Don't think the market's bullish when many factors tell you otherwise. Past 24 hours, you can see Bitcoin did go on a little run up to roughly a 23.9, but ultimately retested line of support as low as like 23.150, and since then we went up to 23.6 almost, got rejected, retraced a few $100 or a couple hundred, and we're trying to break past this line of support right around 23.5, 23.6. Looking at the daily, you can see that we are just barely holding on to that 20 EMA, 20-week EMA. Looking out, zooming out, we can see we are above it, but um, the monthly says otherwise. On the monthly, we're way below the 20-week SMA, which is not bullish altogether. So while the weekly chart says one thing, that we're above it, the daily and the monthly confirm that we are not above it. So not looking too good for Bitcoin. Again, I do think inevitably we will go lower here in the next week or so. But that is not financial advice. That is for you to determine and do your own research. And then DXY seems to be retracing a little bit, retesting lines of support right up here. Hopefully we don't see it fall below 104. I think general point of concern is to see it fall below like 103.8, 103.9. But I do think DXY is going to go parabolic pretty soon, which we'll see stocks and crypto get smashed as a result. So headed over to Twitter. Have news that Russian central bank is working with Congress to legalize Bitcoin mining. Quite the development happening over in Russia just this morning. We talked about this a few weeks back. Lugano, Switzerland has a full list of merchants accepting Bitcoin, hotel, food, drink, coffee. Can do it all with paying by Bitcoin. It's pretty cool. Israel's stock exchange to allow brokers to offer Bitcoin trading to clients. Yet another interesting development across the Atlantic. Fubar says they warned you about 17 million Ethereum unlocked. There's something even worse on the horizon right in front of our eyes. Another 104 million ETH is already unlocked. Will when holders dump, it will create 172 billion dollars worth of sell pressure. Are there buyers? Of course not. Send it to zero. Not everyone will sell their ETH, even if only 10% of holders sell their ETH. That's still 17 billion of sell pressure. Where are the new buyers? Stablecoin market cap continues to shrink. The Binance regulation has only started. Might buy ETH at $80 for the bounce. Quite the FUD from Fubar. I do think it's something to pay attention to, but maybe there's nothing to see here, something to consider. Wicked coming out with this long tweet saying crypto enthusiasts are upset by Gary Gensler's reassertion that he sees Bitcoin as a commodity and everything else is unregistered security. They fear SEC regulation, but fail to realize that if their favorite crypto projects were truly decentralized, regulators wouldn't be able to do shit about them. Sure, they could shut down their on and off ramps, make tax laws unfavorable, hell, even make ownership illegal for everything, Bitcoin included. But what they can't do to Bitcoin, they can do to crypto, go straight to the creators, foundations, or the companies who are responsible for creating and maintaining it. They can't reverse the network effect that Bitcoin has already established or convince the diehard Bitcoiners to stop believing in it. If anything, any attempted regulation of Bitcoin would only add fuel to the fire and embolden Bitcoiners to fight back that much harder. Bitcoin is literally built for this fight, and its users are aware of what's at stake, our monetary freedom. We're willing to go down with the ship, but we all know that our ship ain't going down. Crypto, on the other hand, isn't built for this fight. It's weak, centralized garbage, and its days are numbered. I think the crypto space by and large is full of trash projects and such. I'm not talking bad about crypto, but there are very, 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 can't emphasize enough, varies. There's very few projects that even somewhat compete with Bitcoin, and I can't even give you those lists of projects because my knowledge of the space is very limited. But I'm not gonna sit here and act like Ethereum's totally safe. I feel like Bitcoin is hands down the safest. Uh, it has the what is it, the mover's advantage. It's the first in the space. And kind of like how Wicked points out, it sounds very unlikely that they'll be able to sync Bitcoin, whether it comes to regulation and such, because the blockchain is rather unstoppable. um, but yeah, not to go too often in that tangent. Bubble bursting in crypto isn't like the dot-com era. It's like the protocol wars. IBM, Xerox, AT&T, and others attempted to create propriety-based internet standards. They all lost to TCP/IP, a non-proprietary, royalty-free open architecture. Only Bitcoin has these properties. Interesting perspective. Bitcoin Archive says Illinois is working towards a state cryptocurrency license like New York's BitLicense, according to CoinDesk. Interesting development. Pierre Rockard says, why will this not cause the real estate market to crash? $400,000 mortgage at 2.75% is 1.6K a month. A $250,000 mortgage at 6.75% is 1.6 K a month. Prices to decline by 37.5% for the same monthly payment. This is not good, you guys. Last week, Coin Bureau introduced us to the World Economic Forum cyber attack simulation while in the second year of the Cyber Polygon event. Things got a lot more juicy. That's all covered in part 2 of his video today. Go check him out. He puts out a good amount of content per week. I try to keep updated with it. I'd say I probably watch half his videos on the regular because he's very informative. He does great amount of research, and as we've talked many times before, World Economic Forum, along with governments around the world, are trying to impose the idea of CBDCs and digital IDs forced onto their citizens. Over Nigeria, it's already occurring. That's why I have protests in the streets. Reality is CBDCs and digital ID are forcing citizens, are being forced onto their citizens over in Nigeria, creating a severe cash shortage. With businesses refusing to accept cash, the goal is to make it much more difficult for Nigerians to use cash, and it's working like a dream. So we're seeing already the aftermath of the implementation of CBDCs over in an African nation like Nigeria. a lot of people are not too pleased with it. Country of 60 million is on the verge of collapse amid rolling blackouts over on the continent of Africa. People in South Africa are facing civil war. They're being told to stockpile food and water just in case if conditions are not good and the power grid collapses for whatever reason. So people are advised to have roughly 72 hours of food and water. Rolling 12-hour blackouts are leading to more chaos over in South Africa. So hopefully they get that situation figured out. Meanwhile, contaminated waste from the East Palestine, from East West, contaminated East West. Contaminated waste from the East Palestine is coming to Indiana, according to the EPA. Contaminated waste from the East Palestine train derailment has begun moving and heading towards Indiana. According to the EPA, about 1.8 million gallons of liquid waste have been collected from the derailment site, and that 2 new hazardous waste sites will receive some of the shipments. Interesting. My question is, how far downstream is this stuff? Because if it's already making its way to Indiana, could there be some particles down in the Ohio River right by Illinois, potentially along somewhere in the Mississippi River, the Mississippi River along the coast of Missouri, Kentucky, etc. I think we're just starting to realize how serious this ecological disaster is. But you know, we have plenty. We have plenty of politicians turning the blind eye, looking the other way. Here we have this guy talking about concerning footage today from East Palestine investigation. Dead deer on the banks of Little Beaver Creek at the point where it meets the Ohio River. I followed the creek from East Palestine to where it merges with the Ohio River to see how far the rainbow chemicals could be observed, but was shocked with what I found when I got there. Were they poisoned by some other source? I don't know. Is there connection to the poison coming out of East Palestine? I don't know, but based on everything I'm seeing on the ground, much more needs to be done to find out. Yeah, so while Americans are struggling with ecological disasters that their government have nothing to do with, the U.S. and its politicians are sending $444 million in aid to Yemen by the means of Secretary Anthony Blinken. Here we have the Secretary of the Treasury, Janet Yellen, heading over to Ukraine, meeting with Zelensky in Kiev. Again, I'm glad we have our priorities straight. Clearly, we don't. NATO chief talking about how allies have agreed that Ukraine will become a member of our alliance in the long term. Again, just stirring the pot more, just causing more problems with Russia when we don't need them. But these warmongers will stop at no point. Here we have Elon Musk quoted as saying nobody's pushing this war more than Newland. Kindly retweet this while the documentary loads. I'll rewind this a little bit. It's kind of interesting tidbit. I actually didn't know about all this, but she's supposedly been working for U.S. administration since '93, so she has quite the history, 30 plus years in history of history and experience.
J'aurais voulu demander à Victoria Nuland si elle connaissait dès le départ la présence de néo-nazis chez les révolutionnaires ukrainiens et si elle l'avait sciemment dissimulé pour ne pas gâcher le tableau. Ce jour-là, à Kiev, elle n'a donné aucune interview. Mais quelques mois auparavant, elle a été sommée d'apparaître devant une commission d'enquête parlementaire à Washington et de répondre à la question.
Were there neo-Nazis in those Everett Street violence that led to Mr. Yanukovych's removal?
There were mothers and grandmothers and veterans.
Yes, there were mothers with flowers, but there were also very dangerous street fighters who were engaged in those demonstrations. The question is, were there neo-Nazi groups involved in that?
She dodged the question.
There were, as I said, almost every color of Ukraine was represented, including some,
And
including
The
some
answer is
ugly
yes. The
colors.
answer is yes, then.
Like, how
Nous sommes loin,
disgusting
très
are
loin de
you?
l'image
You can't even
d'Épinal
answer
assurant que
the
Victoria
question
Nuland
clearly because you know the answer. Of course, there's neo-Nazis in Ukraine. Just your typical counter with a member of the SS in Kiev supermarket, but please continue to send your tax dollars to support this fake war. Make sure you have a Ukrainian flag in your Twitter bio. Look at this. I'm not going to say everyone in the Ukrainian military, this guy speaks for them all, or this guy represents everyone in the Ukrainian military, but it is rather concerning that our tax dollars are allowing these types of people to fight a war, an unjustified war built on lies. Here we have Ukrainian government demanded this Euromaidan documentary be taken off air in Europe. Check out the trailer. I wonder why they don't want this documentary to be shared. Well, the reason is because there was a Ukrainian revolution back in 2014, a coup essentially launched by U.S. and its NATO allies. Essentially, they gave they sent in three-letter agency operatives mixed in with some ultra-nationalist Ukrainians, and in this case, some of them were Nazis, essentially, Azov Battalion, and they overthrew the government, literally, essentially a coup d'etat. They put their guy in, which at this point in time is Zelensky, and the rest is history. So they don't want you knowing that there was a coup d'etat happening in Ukraine back in 2014, which definitely has since escalated the tension in the region, between the bombing of the Donbass region, which includes Donetsk and stuff. And which ultimately caused Vladimir Putin to ultimately feel the need to invade Ukraine. Noam Chomsky explains how U.S. involvement in Ukraine and expansion of NATO to Russia's border created the war in Ukraine. The idea, in his own words, the idea that Ukraine would join our Western military alliance would be quite unacceptable to any Russian leader. Gorbachev agreed to allow Germany to join NATO with a quid pro quo that NATO would not expand 1 inch to the east. NATO instantly moved to East Germany. Then Clinton came along, expanded NATO rights at the borders of Russia. And the reporter says to him, you can understand why Ukraine's president would see joining NATO as protecting his country. He responds by saying, no, it's not. Crimea was taken away after the overthrow of the government, right? He's not protecting Ukraine. He's threatening Ukraine with a major war. It's a strategic threat to Russia, which any Russian leader would have to react to. An interesting little tidbit from Noam Chomsky. I'm glad the man's got his facts straight when it comes to the invasion in Ukraine. As we talked a few times on this channel, essentially we made a deal with Gorbachev in the late 80s after the fall of the Berlin Wall that NATO would not expand 1 meter, 1 inch, 1 centimeter eastward of then reunified Germany, East Germany. Since then, we've had over 10 plus states be added to NATO. Poland is most certainly way east of West Germany, and we expanded over there, made them a NATO state. And here we have Bill Gates calling out the Ukrainian government, saying it's one of the most corrupt in the world. Ironically enough, this was fact checked. The context of this being fact checked was the video has been edited to remove context and a word from the beginning of the quote. The quote actually begins as pre-war Ukraine, but the video removed pre-war to give the impression Bill Gates is referring to the current government of Ukraine, which doesn't make sense because it doesn't change the context of the clip in any way. Ukraine has the same government before the war as they currently do, but that's just the powers that be trying to confuse people, trying to dissuade people that the government and power of Ukraine, but before the war, is still the government that's serving right now. Here we have Hassan Mafi talking about how anti-war protests are happening across Europe and Germany, the UK, France, etc. Many hold Russian flags, 100% oppose sending more money and weapons to Ukraine, demand peace talks, and are sick and tired of NATO, but these protests are being ignored in the Guardian's media. What a shame. Yeah, they will never cover the stories that truly matter. It's all propaganda and just lies. Interestingly enough, Biden is the same person who admitted during the primary that he knew Iraq didn't have WMDs, but he was still the Democrat pressuring the party to support that war. Our country invaded another based on a lie and killed 1 million people. Stop the act. The world knows who we really are. Joe Biden was asked on TV, 4 in 10 Americans say they're worse off than when you were elected. Only 16% said they're better off. And here's what he said in response. Here, sorry, I didn't realize he talks like for over half the clips.
Feeling this.
Well, look, I think it goes well beyond the economy. Think about it. You
It's
make the,
economy,
you
stupid.
interview for the news. Can you think of anything they turn on the television and go, God, that makes me feel good? Almost anything. Everything is in the negative.
Everything is in the negative. Yeah, because I'm sorry, but your administration has not done a whole lot for the American people since you've been in office for 2+ years now. So that's probably why so many people dislike you, Sleepy Joe. Tulsi Gabbard saying the warmongers are trying to drag us into World War III, which can end in one way: nuclear annihilation, the suffering and death of all our loved ones. Zelensky, Biden, NATO, congressional media and neocons are insane, and we are insane if we passively allow them to lead us into this Holocaust like sheep to the slaughter. We find hope in the fact that the vast majority of Americans are sane, but sanity is not enough. We also need courage. The courage to step up to the powerful warmongers and in unison declare, no, we will not allow you to destroy our families, communities, environment, country, and world. Well said, Tulsi Gabbard. Here we have an aged clip of Trump being crucified for saying the virus was from a Wuhan lab. He was right, and the
And my question
organization
is,
lied.
have you
This
seen
is
anything at
comical.
this point that gives you a high degree of confidence that the Wuhan Institute of Virology was the origin of this virus?
Yes, I have. Yes, I have. And I think that the
Yes, I
World
have.
Health Organization should be ashamed of themselves
They should be.
because they're like the public relations agency for China. And this country pays them almost $500 million a year.
Crazy.
And China pays them $38 million a year. And whether it's a lot or more, it doesn't matter. It's still, they shouldn't be making excuses when people make horrible mistakes, especially mistakes that are causing hundreds of thousands of people around the world to die.
And my question is, have you seen anything?
That's true. I mean, whether you like Trump or not, he kind of speaking the truth there. And the fact is, you guys, yesterday we talked about how 194 nations would be signing to hand over their medical sovereignty over to the World Health Organization, meaning in future pandemics, if the World Health Organization tells those 194 nations to lock down for whatever reason, even if it's like COVID again, it's not that deadly. They have the authority to tell everyone to do so. So, and this is a scary precedent, you guys, because as we know, World Health Organization dropped the ball many times when it came to COVID. They said lockdowns were good. They said originally that this virus wasn't transmissible from me to you, wasn't transmissible person to person. We found out all of those were a bunch of lies. Here we have Jon Stewart talking about how
What do you mean? But do you mean like
Well, so
there's
here's-
perhaps there's a
the
chance
lab
this was
leak
created in a lab
theory.
there's an investigation?
A chance.
Well, but
so- oh my
if there was
God.
evidence, I'd love to. I
There's
just don't know.
a novel respiratory coronavirus overtaking Wuhan, China. What do we do? Oh, you know who we could ask? The Wuhan Novel Respiratory Coronavirus Lab. The disease is the same name as the lab. That's just a little too weird, don't you think? And then they asked
But see, Colbert has a hard time understanding this concept because he's paid off by Big Pharma to push the idea that, you know, this virus didn't come from a lab. We need to wear masks, etc. You just need to take your medical procedures like a good little peasant and do what you're told. So he's going to
Scientists are
refute
like, how did
everything
this-
Jon Stewart
so
is
wait
saying.
a minute. You work at the
And this is, mind you, this was back, I believe, in like June or July of 2021. So we're getting close to 2 years on this clip.
Wuhan
But it's
Respiratory
aged like
Coronavirus
fine
Lab.
wine.
How did this happen? And they're like, a pangolin kissed a turtle. And you're like, no, the name of your lab. If you look at the name, let me see your business card. Show me your business card. Oh, I work at the coronavirus lab in Wuhan. Oh, because there's a coronavirus loose in Wuhan. How did that happen? Maybe a bat flew into the cloaca of a turkey and then it sneezed into my chili and now we all have coronavirus. Like, come on. Okay. What about this? What about this? Listen to this.
Wait a second,
All right.
John.
Oh my God.
See,
There's been an outbreak of chocolatey goodness near Hershey, Pennsylvania. What do you think happened? Like, oh, I don't know. Maybe a steam shovel mated with a cocoa bean. Or it's the chocolate factory. Maybe that's it.
That could be.
that could be. Oh my goodness, such a propagandist, Colbert. He's taken quite the fall over the years. He used to be pretty good. I remember back when I was still in elementary, middle, and high school. He was good back then. Now he's just total shit brain propagandist. Never forget what they did to mothers trying to feed their children in restaurants because they didn't have their medical records showing that they had taken the medical procedure. This was in New York City. This is disgusting behavior by people just doing their job, falling in line, in my opinion, acting like a form of Nazis back in Germany back in the 1930s and 40s. This is the Gestapo right here. You don't have your papers showing us you took the medical procedure. Well, you can't eat here. You can't do business here. What kind of segregation? What kind of precedent are we setting for the generations to come to think this is acceptable behavior? It's absolute disgusting. In other news, we have a doctor talking about how essentially if he were a woman in his fertile age, he would not plan a motherhood from a man who has taken the medical procedure. So they're basically looking at the mRNA spike proteins being expressed in the testes of people who had taken the medical procedure. This is rather concerning because what does this mean for people who took more than 1 or 2 medical procedures? Does this affect for the years to come? Affect the fertility of these men who took the medical procedure? I'm not quite sure, but it is something that we should be paying attention to. But of course, the media will not cover such a thing because, again, it goes against the rhetoric that Big Pharma knows what's best for you. New globalist marketing PR talking point just dropped. What are 15-minute cities and why are anti-vaxxers so angry about them? Conspiracy theorists claim that attempts to make urban areas more walkable are part of a global plan suppress civil liberties. Explain to me how this is not suppressing civil liberties. Okay, well, let's say Chicago is divided into 4 quadrants, okay? To visit my grandmother who lives in another quadrant, I need to ask the city council, the people in power, if I have the autonomy to do so. And then I'm limited only to do so, I believe, like 100 days of the year. So, roughly for well over 2/3 of the year, I have to just stay in my quadrant and not question things. How does this how is this not going to suppress civil liberties of the average citizen? You tell me. I think it's just typical of the, you know, the mainstream media to push this rhetoric that, oh well, if you don't go with the agenda, then you're an anti-vaxxer. If you don't go with this agenda, you're an extremist. You know, the way you're thinking is wrong. Over in Scotland, Greens accused of environmental madness as wind turbines found to be running on fuel. Yeah, so much for wind turbines and solar panels coming to rescue to save us all from global warming. That's just the narrative they're trying to spin here. Pretty wild stuff. Again, just another another point to show you how ineffective and how upside down the green movement is. But that about does it for today's video, you guys. If you found today's video entertaining, educational, informative, any of the above, please like and share, subscribe, hit notification bell to be notified when we go live next, which will be tomorrow, 9:15 p.m. Central Standard Time. And until then, please take care and invest wisely.